Okay, I hit the record stop on this. I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to get these, but get now two videos up to you. The last premise I wanted to speak to is, in certain sense, it's kind of Mickey Mouse, but I want to make sure that I do this because I want to emphasize the value of the book. And you'll see that in the calendar, I actually lay out the chapters that you should have read by the end of this week, so to speak. So chapters 1 and 2, for example, are the expectations for this. Now, I couldn't possibly speak to each of these things in a video, even of an hour-long video, I don't think. But I will point out the premises that have, I think, great value. And again, I really respect this book very much. The book I have, by the way, I don't know if you can see it, is I can't. It's on my iPad. I like books on iPads, my Kindle app, because then I can highlight it and save it more carefully than just running through it with a magic marker or a highlighter all day long. But that's up to you. But I would recommend that you get the book quickly. And if you need to get it that much more quickly because you haven't gotten it yet, then I would say download it. Okay. So I think it's only $2 less. It's $2 less than the hard copy, but you have it in your hand before I finish this sentence. So again, the book on whole has several parts. Part one is called The Context for Training and Development. And there's the key word, context. I mentioned that when I spoke about the systems premises a little while back. The environment, not necessarily whether it's hot or cold outside or whether the climate is changing necessarily as such. I don't mean to necessarily equate it to that, but the climate, the factors outside you, the world out there that creates the need for your corporation to begin with, or the services that the corporation may develop are a result of somebody or some people saying, you know, we need to do this because no one has that. And so this particular piece here lays a nice foundation for the rest of the book, I think. And then chapter one is your typical introductory piece, but it's got some really important points. Point about designing effective training. Obviously, I don't know if you necessarily need to parse that because it just makes sense. I don't train my people right, they don't perform properly, and then the corporation suffers for that, and they suffer for it as well. And the purpose is not met. The purpose of the organization is not met. Clear enough. But as I mentioned a moment ago, the book does a nice job with the environment. He titles it "The Forces Influencing Working and Learning," and he goes from economic cycles down through technology and new work systems. A lot of things that are intersecting with each other that you don't necessarily have to altogether master, but at least have in your own toolkit so that you know what you need to work with. So he speaks about some competencies that we'll talk more about up the road and gives you a good key terms. And I particularly would like to tell you to take some time to read the case study at the end of the chapter about Zappos shoes. I'm somewhat of a customer of them, and every once in a while I may buy something from them. My friend's wife tells me that they're too expensive, but I don't know. I think they have a pretty good product. Where all you do is go online and pick out a shoe, and the shoe is at your doorstep the next day is kind of attractive to me lately. But you also see that Zappos formed this company with very forward-thinking practices. A lot of what I call flattened hierarchy. Not necessarily with a Mr. Zappo at the top and a pyramid down, cascading down to the person who puts the shoes in the box and sends it to you. A much more flattened decision-making process. We'll talk more about that when we get to culture next week. Apparently, they're having some problems making that continue to work for any number of reasons. I think the case study is a pretty good one to look at. The second chapter is also excellent. It speaks to how training, the idea behind training, has changed. I think you can understand that from any or some of your own personal context as well. And we'll talk more about this next week, but the author talks about strategic. Let me make a differentiation now. This kind of intersects with futuring as well. There's strategic and there's operational. There's also projected, but we'll save that for another day. operational is short term. So if someone said, well, I can't open my restaurant because there's a pandemic and everything is closed. Here's what I'll do is I'll start a takeout program. I'll deliver, which is pretty smart if you think about it. I know some restaurant owners who've given up their restaurants and strictly go with delivery now because they're making more money on that. Curiously enough, so they're thinking operationally short term. And if they're smart, they're also thinking strategically, which is the opposite of operational. When you think 10 years out. Now, see, thinking 10 years out is very difficult for the human brain to do. Very difficult. We're not good at that. We talk it, but we can't particularly walk it mentally because it's not part of how our brains are wired. And yet it's a necessity in order to truly thrive in a competitive and difficult sets of environments that we're working with today. And the challenges to HR managers boggles my mind. All the more reason to have muscles that you need to stay ahead of the emerging future. And so he talks about strategic focus. He talks about the learning organization. And he talks about processes that go along with that you need to consider and how you measure those things, which is something I think that sometimes gets lost in the trees for the forest, as well as the roles, ROLES roles. It's Sunday morning and I'm thinking about buttered rolls for some reason that you need to consider, as well as using different strategies to train to what I call contingently. It's called contingent leadership, actually, where you lead according to the needs of the groups that you're leading. And presuming that you're working with, however big your organization might be, you clearly recognize there are always subsystems, subgroups within that system. And it's very dangerous to put a cookie cutter over that when, in fact, contingently, they need to be dealt with and trained, in your sense, differently, because of their own needs and their own capacities. So that's a big point to speak about. And that's chapters 1 and 2. But don't think for 1 minute that I've done a good job telling you to read, telling you to consider all the issues that the Rowe brings up, because he does a great job with that. And the more deeply you embed that into your own, between your own ears, in terms of understanding your role, ROLES roles, as potential or present HR managers, the more nearly this course will roll for you. So the last thing I'll say is you need to look at some videos this week. You need to read the chapters. You need to answer the discussion questions. So that should keep you pretty busy. I will get on tomorrow from 6 to 7. I will not get on tomorrow. I get on Tuesday from 5 to 6. And anybody who chooses to get on, I'd love to meet you, personally, in terms of what we call personally on Zoom nowadays, to answer any questions or to help you understand anything that you think you would like to know more about. So with that, I'll sign off. You'll need to look for 2 videos, I think, because I made the mistake of shutting this one down for a second. Take care.